The date is Friday, May 6th, and you're listening to Entertain This, a thought-provoking podcast encapsulating all things entertainment. Shrek is a big part of every millennial's early movie experiences, and on this episode, we're finally talking about the big green ogre in the room. We'll talk about why it's a good film, what went into making it, and why it's a parody of the usual fairy tale narrative. There are layers to this story, so listen in and enjoy.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to your favorite show on the internet, encapsulating all things entertainment. You know it, you love it. It's Entertain This.
Entertain This.
As always, I'm Alex.
I'm Michael.
And I'm Nick.
The training wheels are off.
It's a habit at this point.
The training wheels are off. I got it. And at this point, I don't think I'm going to forget that we're going to introduce ourselves at the top of every episode. But I have two meanings by the training wheels are off, because also my lovely girlfriend Chloe got cast in a show, and now we don't have a fact checker.
Woo!
So the training wheels are also physically off. We are on our own in this big and scary
loose
world.
cannons this week.
That is
Scared.
probably the worst thing.
I'm very scared.
Gentlemen, let's have a discussion, shall we? Like a bunch of adults, like civilized beings. You'll hear some crunching. That's just my dog. Worry not. So we have made a habit out of a May the 4th episode happening each year on your favorite show on the internet, encapsulating all things entertainment, Entertain This. Our May the 4th special, if you would. And usually we would do it early so that we can release it the week of May the 4th, usually on May the 6th. Well, we're not doing that this time.
Nah.
Because May the 4th lands on a Wednesday, and that's the day that we usually record. And a day that we go live on Facebook, Twitch, and sometimes Periscope via Twitter. So if you want to watch our May the 4th special, you're going to have to join us on May the 4th live to watch it. Else, wait a week and get it. But the point of the matter is, where this would usually be our May the 4th episode, we're not doing it until next week. But that doesn't mean we're not going to give you a little bit of Star Wars. Because I believe, and Michael, you may correct me, that this episode of Entertain This is based on maybe even a thrown-out script of a Star Wars story. There are a lot of things that go into it. We have a hero who has unusual strength, who meets up with a goofy character of a different genetic makeup, akin to a Jar Jar Binks-esque character, who go on a mission to save a princess of a far-off land from a deeply evil person whose main color is associated with red. Am I correct?
Yeah, just like episode 1.
Just like episode 1. Now that's what I call pod racing.
Now this is pod racing.
Yeah, just like Alex said, this week we are covering something tangentially related to Star Wars in some fashion, maybe.
If you're vague enough, anything is possible.
Yeah. But first, before we get into that,
let me talk to you guys about how the hunt for Osama bin Laden was tangentially related to Star Wars.
See, he's known as also the Phantom Menace, and
I don't think that that's true.
it's true.
It might be.
He hides in a cave. So did Darth Maul, I guess, once.
He did. In the Clone Wars cartoon, yeah, he was in a cave.
Don't know, didn't watch.
Yeah, I would have gone with probably Count Dooku first for hiding in a cave.
Sure.
Michael, does that feel right?
Sure. When they find him in Clone Wars, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. It was definitely more of like I'm not locked in here with you.
You're locked in here with me.
Yeah.
Wow.
Stockholm Syndrome, eh?
Anyway, let's get on to it. Let's stop teasing.
Yeah.
What's the Star Wars tangential story that we're discussing?
Yeah, well, first, before we get into it, I just want to ask you all, like, what we all grow up with like a specific kind of like stories that are told to us, whether that's through like our parents or through children's books. Some of these would be kind of related to like an Aesop fable, but a lot of this stuff is kind of more like fairy tale sort of situations. So what kind of fairy tales do you all remember like growing up, whether that's from like Disney movies or just stories that you remember being told? What are your all's thoughts?
Let me think. I can definitely remember Cinderella and the Seven Dwarfs.
Mhm.
No, not Cinderella and the Seven Dwarfs.
Cinderella and the Seven Dwarfs. They rubbed
Both of
elbows
those.
at some
Yeah.
point.
I remember watching those films when I was a little kid, and they were the animated specials. And
I
there was
remember-
also Hansel and Gretel.
Oh, that's a good
Yeah.
one.
That is
Yeah.
a good one.
I remember Pinocchio, and more specifically the scene where he gets drunk and almost turns into a donkey.
Yeah.
I don't remember that one, but okay.
Oh yeah, dude, that classic Disney Pinocchio. He
Pinocchio.
runs away to the circus with a bunch of other boys.
Mhm.
And at the circus, they're allowed to drink because there are no adults there. They can do what they want. So they all get drunk. But there's something in the alcohol that also turns them into talking donkeys
Yeah.
That's great.
that they then sell to livestock, like to farmers. They sell the boys to farmers.
Mm-hmm.
Whack.
But
May have
Pinocchio's
been-
not
may
a
have
real
been
boy,
very-
so he
yeah.
doesn't turn all the way into a donkey.
Yeah.
He's a wooden
may have
burro.
been metaphorical.
That's wild.
But yeah, so like we grow up hearing all these different stories, all these tales, and all of them kind of serves a different purpose. Like in Pinocchio, there's lots of different little things you can glean from that. Like it could be thinking about like it could be a story about teaching kids to not lie. It could be a story about teaching kids of like it's like how to figure out where you belong in the world and who you are, the importance of like self-identity. All the way down to like thinking like the story of the three bears, like the mama bear, the papa bear, and the baby bear. Things like that, where it's like it's not necessarily to teach anything, it's just like a cute little story. I don't know, maybe the moral of that story is also like don't pull a B&E, don't pull a breaking and entering.
I think I think
Come
the
on,
story of the
Goldilocks.
three little bears is to be happy with what you have, else be eaten by a fucking bear.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think like now that I think about it too, like all the commonalities of all those fairy tales is they all end very brutally.
Dude, we don't talk enough about how the grim fairy tales are actually grim.
Oh yeah.
You ever had porridge? Let me ask that.
It's
Eh,
kind
I
of just
never
a
have.
thick soup, from what I understand.
The hell is porridge? I thought I was going to encounter it more in the real world, but
When I hear the word porridge, I associate it more with Teletubbies and their
Yeah.
tubby
Yeah.
custard than I do with anything
Tubby
else. Yeah, but that's a bird of a different feather.
But yeah, so we all know, like I think pretty much everyone, at least in America, probably lots of places in Europe as well, grow up hearing these stories. And for the most part, like the identities of these stories are only like solidified through mediums like movies, where it's like you see it through Disney movies. Like you mentioned earlier, Cinderella, and you kind of mentioned Snow White and the Seven Dwarves.
Cinderella and the Seven Dwarfs.
Yeah.
Get it
And-
right, Michael.
Let's
Sure,
not mince words
okay.
here.
Sleeping Cinderella and the Seven Angry Men.
Yep.
The Hateful Eight.
I would love to see a Quentin Tarantino re-envisioning of Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs.
Now that's what I call Pulp Fiction. Let's keep it going, guys. Let's just keep this train rolling.
But yeah, and so like that's where you have like Disney kind of taking these sorts of stories and turning them into their first feature-length movies that kind of exploded onto the scene. And we talked about all that in like a previous episode. But through like kind of what we talked about in that, we talked all about how Disney went through and adapted a bunch of these stories, and eventually they reinvented the medium of telling cartoon stories through movies by turning these fairy tales into musicals, and that becoming like this embodiment of musical theater through animation. Well, there, it kind of kicked off this whole snowball of everyone else trying to copy Disney.
Oh yeah.
You had tons and tons of other movies that all kind of came from the same blood. Specifically,
Weirdly, the most like successful being Anastasia, which is like
yeah,
so close to being Disney, but also based in reality, based off of true events, and has
Mhm.
Rasputin as a demon. It's
Yeah.
wild. It is a wild story.
Shout out
There's
Rasputin.
tons and tons of absolutely like incredible movies that came from that time that aren't exactly Disney either. Specifically from a studio that I really came to like know from their title swipe, their little title screen, DreamWorks. It's the
I
little
knew it.
boy fishing off the moon.
So not Lucasfilms?
No,
They made Labyrinth.
they did.
Do you
They
remember
did
the
make
Lucas Arts logo with the eyeball and the person doing this?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I loved it.
iconic.
So DreamWorks made Rio?
I don't know if they made Rio. They made so DreamWorks is who has made
They made Hop. No. They made
They
Over the
made-
Hedge.
Boy, I wish we had a fact check.
No, they made movies like El Dorado. Do you all
Oh,
remember
Road
that
to
one?
El Dorado?
Yeah,
Mhm.
Yeah, man.
shit was incredible. They've also gone on to they've really become famous for their like 3D animated movies.
They made Kung Fu Panda.
Yeah, they made
There you
Kung Fu
go.
Panda. They
And
made
Megamind.
Yeah, they also made How to Train a Dragon.
Good one.
And Madagascar, lest
Yeah.
we forget.
Yeah,
That's a good one.
but
Boss
The thing
Baby.
yeah, Boss Baby, not one of their better ones, but
That's okay.
sure.
Flushed Away.
Yeah,
If I may continue.
That's the
And I
Uh,
will. Chicken Run,
yep.
great
of
film.
course.
You're missing. There's one in particular that I remember.
Oh, don't worry. I'm going to say it. Ready?
Okay.
Here it is. Ants.
That is one, but like, that one I really enjoyed that movie.
Okay, hold on. Let me
Wait,
hit
did,
you.
Did Ants come out in like 1999 or so?
Let me hit you with this
Came out
one.
like 1999, like 2000.
And it had the little ant named Flick.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no,
Trolls?
that was a Toy Story, I think. Not
Trolls
Toy
2
Story. Sorry,
World
Bugs Life.
Tour.
Bug's Life. I'm sorry. Yeah,
Oh.
sorry.
Boss Baby, starring Alec Baldwin.
Who?
We've already said that one.
Oh, Shark Tales, where Will Smith smacks.
the
No, wait,
one!
that was the Oscars.
But no, the one that
The
kinda,
B
like-
movie. Shit.
Oh, they did make the B movie.
Okay, sorry.
what a
Now
great
you go. Okay, your
What a
turn
great
now. You get the talking stick.
Yeah. All right. Cool.
If I haven't
But-
named it by now, I don't know.
No,
else did they
but
make?
so
I'm
so
trying
DreamWorks had like limited success up into like the early 2000s.
Up until they invented Minions.
Sure. No, that's Illumination.
How could you forget?
What? They made the Minions movie.
Illumination did. Yeah.
Are
Different
we missing
studio.
something here? I can't think of the.
Oh no, they're making Minions: Rise of Gru.
But no, so DreamWorks had like fairly limited success. They kind of took the main guy, like the main guy who ran all of the movies from Disney. His name was Jeffrey Katzenberg. He reported directly to Michael Eisner, who was at the time the CEO of the Disney company.
Mhm.
Yes.
And he didn't necessarily leave on the best terms. They both historically hated each other, and which was the main cause of him wanting to leave. And so he kind of wanted to take a lot of his knowledge and this passionate hate for this man and this company into a new light and turn that into art.
I love success stories that start with spite.
Yeah,
I
me
think
too.
that's the energy that moves our world and that more people need to acknowledge and establish that as truth.
Absolutely. But yeah, so with that spite and this like artistic vision that this man had, he ended up finding a children's book created by one William Steig, who William Steig was basically the he was the king of cartoons in the 30s and to the 60s. Basically made almost every single cartoon in the New Yorker, and that was like his bread and butter.
Mhm.
But he ended up writing a children's book, one titled Shrek.
Oh,
That was the movie we're missing. I couldn't
Get
Yeah.
out me swamp.
Get out me swamp.
Now I know what you're asking yourself. Is Shrek and Star Wars related? Absolutely not.
No.
We definitely pulled the wool over your eyes, but we will be back next week for Star
Fooled
Wars.
ya. We didn't fool.
I'm sure we could pull
Damn
the whole
soul.
like 5 steps from Disney on that. Well, actually, there's just like 2 to 3 steps.
6 degrees
It's
of
on
bacon?
Disney Plus now.
Shrek was made by Jeffrey Katzenberg, who previously worked at Disney. There we
And
go. And Disney owns
Disney-
Star Wars.
Because they bought 20th Century Fox.
Yeah.
2
Yeah.
degrees.
There we go. We got it.
Wow.
So,
Sold. Package
Shrek.
shipped and sold.
so Shrek. Shrek is a movie that I'm pretty sure all 3 of us have seen.
Yeah.
Who's Shrek? What's a Shrek?
Get your head out of your butt, Nick. Just for that, you tell us who Shrek is, you meme lord.
He is a green ogre, and he doesn't like anybody in his swamp.
And that's pretty much all you need to know. That's a pretty good jumping off point.
Yeah. I mean, at this point, I feel like even our youngest listeners probably still know who Shrek is.
Yeah.
Somehow via memes.
Right. Like Shrek has become this like intravenous shot into the veins of the internet. Like
Pretty much.
it's just like it's everywhere.
Shrek-
Shrek
there.
is love. Shrek is life. Am I
Mhm.
not correct?
No, you're absolutely correct.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm not going to talk about that. I refuse to talk about Shrek.
You don't have to. I think that was a nice little nudge in that direction for those curious minds.
Don't look at
So-
it. Trust me. Just don't.
So one of the big things that like kind of drew me towards wanting to talk about Shrek, not just because of its extreme memeability and how much,
But that is
prevalence
part
has.
of it, right?
It's a major part of it.
Okay, great. So we
it's why I
can
even
talk
still
about
think of
that?
it to this day. Absolutely.
Okay,
But-
great.
The thing that really
Okay.
interests me about it is that this movie was explicitly made to be a major parody of Disney movies.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Big old
Yeah.
Digiboo right on Disney's chest.
Yeah, and
Explain.
it's probably one of the most successful parodies of all time.
Yeah.
So we take a look at like Disney movies traditionally. It's the whole like you have a character who is longing for something and they're going to sing about it. Then things happen and then they sing some more and then plot resolution happens and then happily ever after.
This is hilarious in a meta sense.
Yeah.
Because you're totally right. That is the initial desire of when they were writing Shrek. Because notably in the movie Shrek, there are no songs being sung.
Every attempt at and beginning to a song sung by a character is immediately shut down.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I love it.
And it's explicitly made that way. Like examples being like when Princess Fiona tries to sing to the bird,
Yeah. It just
a la Snow White, and the bird as she gets higher and higher just explodes.
yeah.
There's the Robin Hood scene with Robin Hood
Mhm.
and his merry men. They start trying to break out into a play, and Fiona just drop kicks Robin Hood.
Kung Fu. Yeah.
Yeah. And then even then, like there's a scene early on where Donkey tries to start singing "You Gotta Have Friends," and
Yeah.
Shrek is just like, "Shut the fuck up."
So here's what's wild is
I love it.
Shrek the musical exists.
No, it doesn't.
But it does.
Not
and it's
no.
actually
Get out.
it's actually a really good show. But
It spits in the face of everything that Shrek is supposed to be.
correct.
How irreverent.
Yeah, a movie. I can't believe someone would just
It's
make such a grotesque attempt.
It
at,
specifically spits in the face of this one point.
yeah, it does.
The singing.
Yeah,
Because it definitely
Well-
adds the singing back in. But it's a pretty legitimate transformation when in comparison to other movies to musical attempts. Shrek
Yeah.
stays pretty close to source material.
like relatively. Like if you're going to tell me that someone made a Broadway play based off of Shrek, it does better than I'd ever think it could do.
Exactly.
Yeah. But yeah,
it does better than Spider-Man.
It's
Spider-Man killed people.
Yeah. I need to watch that just to be mad.
you
Spider-Man
do.
musical?
Yeah, it's called Spider-Man Turn Off the Dark. First off, stupid. Second,
Okay.
no.
Yeah.
Okay.
I love a good hate watch.
Yeah. So Shrek doesn't have singing.
But
and
it does have lots of music though.
It's not based around a beautiful princess. Actually, the exact opposite.
Yeah.
Kinda
Yeah,
funny.
especially I mean, basically everything that we have grown up to know about like fairy tales and Disney movies is all stated in the first scene of the movie, where you get opened up to this little storybook and you get introduced to a person with a Scottish accent reading over a story of a princess captured, locked away in the tallest tower in a castle guarded by a dragon, and it's up to her shining knight to come and rescue her and wake her up with true love's first kiss, and then they lived happily ever after. Immediately followed by Shrek ripping the last page of the story out and using the page to wipe his butt because he's just got done pooping.
Incredible.
Straight into one of the best movie intros of opening like musical intros of all time, just smashing the door open, just straight up. Somebody was.
And
So good.
for movie openings, for character introductions, what a beautiful way to introduce us to our main character.
Oh my
That's
god!
Shrek. 100%.
By being
the
like,
entire first scene is perfect.
no words, just Shrek. No cell phones, just vibing. Pulls out his earwax, makes it into a candle for his dinner. Brushes his teeth with the guts of a slug.
Yep. Showers in mud.
In literal mud that he drinks.
Yep.
Like, watching it, you're like,
Yeah. It's one of those things, like, as a kid, I was like, ha, 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 that's funny. And I went and watched it back recently and was just like, oh, God.
But yeah, because they want you to know right off the bat, like, hey, this is a gross dude. If you're not down with this, you're not going to be down with the rest of the movie.
Yeah.
But that's what resonates with like young boys, especially, is like, oh, they're doing all this gross out stuff.
Well, and like even like my little sisters, when they watched it, the entire time they're just like, yeah, but then like they're glued to it the entire time.
Yeah, man.
But yeah, it's just this like casual, irreverent movie. Like everything that happens in this movie is like exactly what you want from like a good slapstick. It's slapstick fart movie, basically.
It's a buddy comedy.
Yeah.
Like, you love a buddy comedy.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you got Shrek, who is this absolutely disgusting giant green ogre
who's living on a swamp by himself, and he loves it. He's way down, man.
He's minding his own beeswax.
He just wants you to stay the frick out his swamp.
Yeah, he just wants to be all by himself.
He loves it, man.
Yeah, and then at some point, like, you see that people try and come and get him. They bring
in Walk the Fairy Tale Creatures, my main man.
Well, even before that, before we're introduced to any fairy tale creatures,
you're so right.
We get. Trust me, I just watched. I just watched it. We see Shrek come see them coming down the road, yelling with their pitchforks and torches, and Shrek somehow sneaks up right behind them, which is why they start talking about like, oh, he'll grind your bones into dust and turn it into bread. And then that's when Shrek chimes in from behind us like, no, actually that's giants. Ogres are much worse. Make jelly from your eyes, and it's quite delicious on toast.
Incredible.
Wow.
But yeah. So every little bit of intro to Shrek at the beginning is just like, this guy is the most abrasive motherfucker on the planet. And for good reason. He wants it to be that way. But then we find out that the kingdom, the kingdom has created this policy of they want to capture all of the fairy tale creatures.
Duloc.
Yes, Duloc. Run by King Farquaad.
King Fuckwad.
King.
Yeah.
I was about to say.
Yeah.
Who is modeled off of the prince from The Princess Bride, who was a
Well,
fuckwad.
Well, so no.
Well.
What the actual theory is that he's really modeled off of Michael Eisner, the then current CEO of Disney.
Well, that's a lot better. And I will
Especially
be Googling.
when you consider that like the Duloc Castle
Yes, we can get into
is
that.
basically Disneyland.
Yes.
No way.
Yeah, and that's why his name is King Farquaad or King Fuckwad.
Farquaad.
God, when you look at them next to each other, it's kind of hard
The
to
resemblance
deny.
is striking.
Yeah.
Wow.
But yeah, and we'll talk about Lord Farquaad a bit more in here soon. But he has issued a decree to capture all fairy tale creatures, and this is where we kind of get to see that like every fairy tale creature from any of these stories that we've talked about exists in this world all at the same time. Or it's like you see like Geppetto is just handing over Pinocchio for some money. And he's like, no, I'm not a puppet. I'm a real boy. And his
I'm a
nose
real
grows and
boy.
does the whole thing. Yeah.
This is so bizarre.
Oh yeah, it's crazy. But you see like the three bears, like Mama Bear, Papa Bear, and Baby Bear, all locked up in their own perfectly sized cages.
Yep.
And it's like you see all of this shit, and it's just so wild. But this is also when we're introduced to who is, in my opinion, the glue of this entire movie.
Holds it
This
together.
this is Donkey.
Donkey.
Eddie
Donkey.
Murphy as Donkey.
Yes, the talking donkey. Who outs himself as a talking donkey
Immediately.
when Tinkerbell from Peter Pan falls on him and gives him the ability to fly.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
This does not play back into the plot. It's a one-off and it's done.
The one off, it ends. It's just a way to get people chasing Donkey out of there.
Mm-hmm.
And Donkey runs straight into Shrek Swamp.
Who's Shrek is trying to convince them to get out of his swamp at this point, isn't
That's all. That's all he wants. Shrek runs in Donkey, and Donkey is just the friendliest little guy. Talks
Too friendly,
all
if
the
you
time.
ask me.
Yeah.
He's one of those intro or extroverts. Ooh.
This is at its core the tale of an introvert versus an extrovert.
Yep.
Absolutely.
You're talking to people. Oh.
Yeah. I love Donkey so goddamn much. But yeah, it's like Shrek scares off the people chasing Donkey, saves them, and because and for the first time ever in Shrek's entire life, he meets someone who isn't immediately terrified of him.
Because Donkey's stupid.
A little bit. Yeah, he's a little dumb.
Better.
He's a little dumb.
He's a dumbass.
Yeah.
You get it?
Nice.
Because it's...
Wow.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Good bit.
Yeah. But yeah, so Donkey at this point is just like convinced that Shrek is his best friend. Because he can kind of see that Shrek is lonely. He doesn't have anyone around him. He's just going to follow him home. And invites himself right into Shrek's house, who Shrek has never had anyone in his home ever. Then later that night, we find out that Lord Farquaad has sent all of the fairy tale creatures to go live in Shrek's swamp.
Okay.
And so the whole modus operandi here is that Shrek doesn't want these creatures here. He doesn't want to see the three witches from the three witches from Rapunzel there. He doesn't want the three blind mice there. He doesn't want the seven dwarves and Snow White's dead corpse on his table.
The three blind mice are such a powerful character. I will remember them always.
Yeah.
Funny.
They were like Australian.
Yeah, something stupid. They were like Australian or British or something.
They're like, where are we? I don't know. You ask him. And they're like hitting each other with their canes and shit.
Throwing around everywhere.
Just so good.
But yeah, so Shrek, we've now established his motivation. He wants to be alone. He doesn't want Donkey here. He didn't let donkeys even like come inside for dinner. So he just sat there by the candlelight of his own earwax, ate his dinner while Donkey sat outside. And now all of a sudden he's got all the fairy tale creatures there in his swamp. So he wants to go talk to Lord Farquaad to get them all out. The only person that's there that knows how to get to Duloc is Donkey.
Something has hit me as you've discussed this, which is probably the reason why you love this movie so much. In comparison to all of the fairy tale stories that are told, Shrek is the absolute closest you get to an actual D&D campaign.
Oh, 100%, yeah.
To like, shit goes off the wall, people do things you don't expect, everybody is equally badass and vulnerable at the same time. And
there's a lot of really weird pop culture references.
And most of the shit that's happening is just for the joke and meme of it.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. Because it's all in the spirit of just making fun of itself at all steps. Yeah, and like that's where we come to Donkey and Shrek showing up at Duloc Castle, which you look at
Duloc, it's a perfect town.
Yeah, that.
Shine your shoes, wipe your
face. Which,
No
if we're gonna break into it, that is like a 1-for-1 makeover of It's a Small World. From Disney World.
Yeah, it's like you get there, you see a guy standing out front with a giant Lord Farquaad head on, and as soon as he sees Shrek, runs through the giant maze of the little entryway, little ropes that they have set up for like ticket booths. And Shrek just walks straight through it. But yeah, it's like you see all of this like just absurdity. And it all is extremely pointed to like, no, this is Disney World. Lord Farquaad is the head of Disney.
Was there no lawsuit filed?
No.
There was no cease and desist? It was just far enough away that Disney was like, we can't fucking touch it.
Yeah, it's a parody.
There's lots of mouse ears. They get involved.
Oh yeah, no mouse ears. Short guy though can definitely use a short guy.
Short guy's okay.
Yeah,
short mouse. Don't try it.
Which now that I think about it, we kind of skipped over one part where we're introduced to Lord Farquaad
himself.
This tiny little man who all he wants to do is become king. Who he has been pointed out to is like he's not a true king, because he hasn't married a princess, as told by the magic mirror. And this only happens after he brutally tortures the gingerbread man.
They dunked him in milk and everything.
Broke his legs off. He broke his kneecaps.
He kneecapped him.
Yeah.
Jeez.
But worst of all, he was going to steal his gumdrop button. And which then we're taken straight to the magic mirror, who gives Lord Farquaad all this information and has a few select options for him, and presents all of these as if it was the dating show. But he eventually picks number 3, Fiona, who's the one locked away in the castle, straight from the storybook at the very beginning of the movie.
Number 3, my lord.
Yeah. Number 3, pick number 3, my lord. But yeah, and so Lord Farquaad, being who he is, though, like he's a tiny little man.
Got Napoleon complex.
Yeah, he's not going to go do this.
100%.
He's not going to go do this thing himself. So he has a tournament of champions to figure out who will be his champion to go save Princess Fiona, to bring her back so he can marry her. It's at this time of this tournament is when Shrek and Donkey walk in. So as soon as they walk in, the tournament instantly becomes whoever can kill Shrek will be the champion.
Only Shrek can kill Shrek.
Yeah. To the tune of Bad Reputation.
Yeah.
Shrek
good.
beats up the entire tournament and ends up winning. Where Lord Farquaad makes the deal: if you can go rescue this princess for me, I will get everyone out of your swamp. So
There you go.
yeah,
Daddy.
Shrek's like, all right, yeah, fuck all them fairy tale creatures.
Fuck them kids.
And goes off. And there they go and they go to the castle. They save Princess Fiona. Where one of the things that I loved about this was Princess Fiona. You've been told this entire time that she's asleep, fully fucking awake, and just pretending the entire time. As soon as Shrek gets like shot into her room, she jolts up as he has his back turned, sits back down, cleans herself off, grabs a rose, holds it to her chest, and as Shrek is leaning in to wake her up, puckers up for a big ol' kiss.
A little smooch, huh?
A little smooch, but she doesn't get the fairy tale awakening that she was hoping for. Because her entire idea was like, no, this is me. It has to be perfect. This is the only thing that I'm about, and it has to be perfect.
Well, I mean, and you can't the awesome thing about Shrek is, and what Disney always misses, is that the characters in Shrek are so human.
Yeah.
Like everything about them, to their desires, aspirations, and motivations, are based on a human level. So if you thought like Fiona thought, and granted, Fiona's nuts, and we gotta deal with that first. She basically is brainwashed like, this is what I'm supposed to do.
Mm-hmm.
She's been taught her whole life, this tower's where she's meant to go, and more so, this thing that's happening to her will not stop happening to her.
Yeah, she has a curse, and the only way it's going to stop is if this exact perfect thing happens.
So basically, she knows that her life has purpose up until the point of this thing happening. And once this thing happens, she no longer knows what her life's purpose is. So this is the most important moment in Fiona's life. This is where her purpose begins and ends. So yeah, she needs it to be perfect.
Yeah. And it's one of those things. It's kind of like a little bit of a commentary on like the women's roles in these stories. They're meant to be the princess, the damsel in distress, and the knight in shining armor is supposed to make the save.
And that's it. That's as far as they get.
Well, the thing you end up learning is Fiona's a bit of a firecracker. She don't give a shit. Once you get her outside the castle, after she goes through the mental the loop-de-loops of like figuring out like what to do next, she then goes along with Shrek and Donkey back to Lord Farquaad. They're traveling along, and it's through this time where she gets to bond with the two of them. This is where we get the scene of her singing to the bird and making it go boom. It's where we see her beating the ever-living shit out of Robin Hood and his merry men.
Because they're trying to save her just the same as Shrek is.
Yeah, in the same style as The Matrix.
Yeah.
The bullet time thing with that.
Yeah.
Which is so D&D, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
Can we take a second? Because I think we can do this. If Shrek was a D&D campaign, obviously Shrek's a barbarian.
Yeah.
No doubt about it.
He's either a barbarian or a fighter, one of the two.
No, because I think Fiona's a fighter. I mean, they both could be fighters, but if
I'd say Fiona's a monk.
Yeah, you're right. Fiona's like a monk. And then
Donkey's a bard.
He's a bard. Undoubtedly a bard. To the point where he actually grants inspiration via singing multiple times. Then you got to. I don't know the words, but you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
It's the first time I heard crap in a child's movie. It was incredible. I walked out saying, "Is crap a cuss word?" And my parents were like, "Not really." And I was like, "New word to the vocabulary."
Well, so this movie came out in 2001.
Mm-hmm.
So at the time, I was 7.
Yep.
I remember explicitly seeing this movie in theaters, and this was the first time in my life I think I had ever heard the main character of a movie specifically say the word ass.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
The A word?
Yeah, I know.
What was its initial rating? Shrek. It wasn't G.
I'm pretty
Probably
sure it was
PG.
PG. It was PG.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, you can say like 2 or 3 curse words and still keep it PG.
Yes.
And even
Especially in this
really
case.
This
Yeah,
show's
especially
our show's not PG.
No.
Rated
Uh,
R.
But yeah, no, it's like Shrek in this case technically isn't even cursing because he's talking
No.
about Donkey. He's got to go save his ass.
And somebody said that to a boardroom of people for sure.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
He's like, he's not cussing. He's talking about a donkey.
yeah.
Same way to call a dog a certain other word. It's all okay.
And I think this is a good time to point out too that Shrek is voiced by a comedian legend. It was Mike Myers.
But that wasn't the original choice.
No, it wasn't. And that's actually like a really depressing story.
Yeah.
The original voice, for anyone who doesn't know, the original voice of Shrek was actually Chris Farley.
And you can still listen to like a couple of his scenes that are still penciled over.
Yeah, there's the one that is famous now is the scene of Chris Farley reading for Shrek when him and Donkey are talking under the big moon, where Donkey presses him about like what Shrek really wants and what his fears are.
And Shrek at the time wasn't Scottish. That actually was a choice by Michael Myers.
Yeah, and it wasn't until Michael Myers' second take of all of the lines.
He recorded the entire thing and they showed it to him and he said, "This isn't right. I have to change it."
Whew.
Yeah.
And he recorded them all Scottish and was like, "That's it."
Yep, and then they had to go back and retool a lot of the animations to make it work.
Which means that the character in Austin Powers, Fat Bastard, who is also Michael Myers in Scottish, you could take his lines and you could animate Shrek right over it and it would look perfect.
Yep, exactly.
So the baby back ribs scene where he's talking about eating a baby could easily be a Shrek scene.
Yep, or the scene where he talks about his little sumo diaper
Yeah.
could easily be a Shrek scene.
So this movie's been in development for a while because Chris Farley died in like I think 1997.
Yeah, so this movie started production in I had it written down somewhere.
It's probably like 95 or so.
It probably started out as a 2D animation.
Yeah.
So he started actively making the movie 1995, the year after founding DreamWorks.
Okay.
Yeah.
And from the get-go, I'd imagine it was a CGI. It was one of those early
probably
CGI films.
because that's like Toy Story 2, I think, came out around that time.
Well, so originally the entire thing was meant to be like a fully motion captured movie. But motion capture at the time just kind of sucked. And so they couldn't actually get it right. So they wasted like 2 or 3 years on it.
Nice.
Yeah.
Like, this shit doesn't work. We need to do it in the computer.
Yeah. You know, it's one of the craziest things too. Now I think about like 2001 from movies. 2000 Shrek at the time, or Shrek was only the 4th highest grossing movie of 2001.
Wow.
Yeah.
What were the other ones?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I gotta ask.
This is where you got number 1, or no, we'll start at number 3, Monsters Inc.
Yeah.
Oh, such a banger.
Yeah. Number 2, The Lord of the Rings, The Fellowship of the Ring, the first Lord of the Rings movie.
Guess that's good.
And then number 1, Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone.
Son of a bitch.
Whew.
Yep.
It was stacked against our boys. That was a fire year for theaters. Like, we cannot argue.
Think about, like, even the stuff that came out that is below Shrek, you got like Pearl Harbor, you got Jurassic Park 3, you got Planet of the Apes, you got Ocean's 11. All that shit. Lots of incredible movies. The jury's still out on The Mummy Returns and Jurassic Park 3. But but that top 5 of like Ocean's 11 to Harry Potter, incredible set of movies.
What a year.
But yeah, so throughout this movie though, we've had like these small moments of like Shrek talking about who he is and his fear, why he doesn't want to be around anyone, why he wants to be alone. All this coming at like the pressuring of Donkey, just not letting any of this stuff go. And this is where like we learn that like Shrek, like he's got a complicated view of ogres, like they're like onions, they have layers, and every time that Donkey even attempts to say like, oh no, like let's think of like a good thing with layers, like onions don't taste good. What are things that people like that have layers? There's cake
and a parfait.
There's parfait. Everybody loves a good parfait.
There's trident layers.
But Shrek
doesn't say that.
Well,
yeah.
Sure.
But no, Shrek insists on onions of all things.
Because they're smelly and nobody likes them.
But the thing you think about though is like
I like
if
onions.
if you can manage to take like the good parts of an onion and use it in a recipe, almost every good food that out there that's like nice and savory made with onion.
Think about it.
You know, yeah, there's lots of good food out there that's got onion. Everybody likes the flavor of onion.
So
But
we're
yeah.
on our way back to Lord Farquaad,
Yeah,
and there's a little bit of a spark between
Yeah.
Shrek and Fiona. They got a little moment where they make balloon animals out of actual animals.
yeah, Shrek
And they're farting and
inflates a
tooting
frog.
and burping and
Inflates a
stuff.
frog.
Yeah, Shrek
like-
inflates a frog.
That's accidentally in love, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Who's to say it was a problem, baby? I don't know where, maybe I'm in love.
Yeah, and then Fiona takes a snake and then turns that into the string of the balloon. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we
I
see
thought
this,
that they blow up the balloon. They're like, or they blow up the snake.
Yeah, they do.
Oh,
and they
you're right. You're
turn
right.
it into a dog or something.
You're right. But yeah, like we see this little romantic little spark go between the two of them, and you're sitting there wondering, like, hey, like Shrek's this big scary ogre, like who probably smells like absolute death.
Yeah.
But
But Fiona hasn't showered in 12 years.
yeah,
Wow.
She's been locked up in a tower.
yeah, guarded by a dragon, and who the dragon also wants to fuck Donkey.
Glad that we finally shoehorned that in there. I was afraid we were going to gloss over it.
I wanted to, but at
Can't
some
miss
point I was
that.
like, it has to be mentioned. Like, it just like is overtly like this dragon just wants to make sweet, fiery love with a donkey.
I got questions about that, but we're just not gonna ask those.
Well, here, let me answer that question. The donkey's the girl.
Oh,
There you go.
yep.
No
Michael?
elaboration. Okay, all right.
I don't want to hear more. Thank you. I've heard the birds and the bees, but not the donkeys and the dragons.
Get your head out of your ass. That's
Hey,
all I
that's
got
the true D&D right there.
I'd like to seduce the dragon, please. Name a more powerful bard move than seducing the goddamn dragon. He's the bard of the group.
100%.
Rolled a 23.
But yeah, and so it's at this point too where it's like we also see that like, oh, what's like Fiona's still cursed. Like if she wasn't sleeping and sleeping wasn't her curse, what was her curse? Donkey finds her in a building where after the sun has gone down, well, it turns out Fiona turns into an ogre too.
Fucking wild, first off. That's some
It's a
Deus Ex
match made
Machina
in
there.
heaven. I mean, like the thing is that if you want to take like a psychoanalytical look at it, which I love to do at kids movies, Fiona, like this entire movie is kind of like about fears. Like Shrek's fear, when we get down to it and we hear about like all this from when he's talking to Donkey, is like he wants to be alone. He likes the isolation because he is afraid of how everyone looks at him. Everyone only sees this big scary ogre and no one actually cares about who Shrek is. Like everyone is asking who's Shrek. No one ever asked how's Shrek.
Everyone always asks, where's Waldo? But never, how's Waldo?
That's
Yeah.
interesting. So, like, is Donkey afraid of just being alone? And that's why
I would say Donkey's more like the therapist in this whole thing. He doesn't really have any like problems. He's just the guy trying to solve these other people's problems.
How about that?
I mean, like you can
there's
talk
a
little
huge
bit about
falling out between Donkey and Shrek, where Shrek's like, I don't need you, I don't want you, you're annoying, don't talk to me, and he like slumps off. That tells me there's something.
Well, the thing there is that for me, I see that as like more like
it's a reaction.
Donkey feels like he's gotten a breakthrough with Shrek, where it's like
Mhm.
he's seen this spark with Fiona. He's felt like he's become like a genuine friend, but Shrek just like let Fiona go with Farquaad. That like he's just like really angry and mad at. It's more like just a genuinely good friendship kind of thing there. It's like Donkey's just mad at Shrek for letting himself down. But no, and so we think about like Fiona though. Fiona, her entire thing is about this, like she wants to be this perfect princess. She wants to be this fairy tale version of herself, but we've seen from the last like 15 minutes of her hanging out with Shrek, she's absolutely not that. She has all these like internal inconsistencies that don't match up with who she's supposed to be. And she's deathly afraid of people ever finding that stuff out. And the thing is that like this spark between her and Shrek is kind of like this whole recognition of herself. Like Shrek is the physical manifestation of all of Fiona's fears. It is rejection and isolation and being seen as this disgusting, horrible being. But Shrek is like, she only has to deal with that at night. Shrek's had to deal with that his entire life. And so her and Shrek are these perfect little foils for each other. They just like they match up and they say opposites attract.
That's a matter of fact.
Yeah. But yeah, so eventually though, Shrek and Fiona, they get angry at each other, and so Shrek lets her go with Farquaad. This is where we get Shrek going back to the swamp, kind of like giving Donkey the boot because he's now just like sad.
Yeah.
And this is where we have the scenes of Fiona getting ready for the wedding and Shrek just being super lonely and coming to terms with the fact that like he wants friends. He doesn't want to be alone. He wants friends.
What song is playing at this point?
Hallelujah.
Yeah, that's
Hallelujah.
Pulls on your
it.
heartstrings.
So right. Man,
So good.
that whole album's a bop. I'm going to buy it
It's
on CD
incredible.
right
Honestly,
now.
it is an incredible movie soundtrack. But yeah, and then so eventually though, Shrek realizes like what he actually wants. So he goes and he fights through the entire castle to get to Fiona to save her from marrying Lord Farquaad. He comes through and he objects and eventually convinces he does all this with the help of Donkey, who has now coerced through love the help of the dragon. And yeah, and they get there, and Lord Farquaad, he obviously wants to kill Shrek now. Well, so the dragon just eats him. The dragon just eats Lord Farquaad unceremoniously.
I love eBay. I just bought the Shrek CD for $2.99.
Hell yeah.
Hell yeah.
You know, it's on Spotify, probably, right? You wanted to buy it?
Yeah, but if you look behind me, I have a CD player and this new drawer system that I just got where I could put a bunch of CDs. So now I'm into that.
Show and tell.
Thank you.
But yeah, and this is where Shrek eventually, like him and Fiona, they figure out like, oh, this is where true love's first kiss is supposed to happen. Shrek sees Fiona. Before this happens, the sun goes down and Shrek gets to see Fiona in her full ogre form. But they recognize at this point, like, yeah, we do love each other.
And he's like, ogre.
Girl. he looks at ogre Fiona and goes, she thicker than a bowl of oatmeal.
She's thicker than a Snicker.
Thicker than a bowl of porridge.
And so the thing is when she gets true love's first kiss, she's supposed to become the perfect version of herself. And this is like, she's hoping that even though she's turned into an ogre, if Shrek loves her and is going to kiss her, she'll turn into the perfect human version of herself. But nope. Shrek loves her for who she is, so she becomes Princess Ogre Fiona.
And Shrek's like,
that's how Shrek really loves her. Yeah. They go back to Shrek's swamp. They have the wedding, all to the tune of "I'm a Believer," sung by Eddie Murphy.
Don't we get Ghost Farquaad too?
I don't remember that.
Where's Ghost Farquaad come into play? Because I could have sworn that there was a Ghost Farquaad.
I'm thinking that's the sequel, possibly.
I don't think so.
I don't really know. If you're thinking of like him appearing over a campfire, that's actually from Star Wars, because that's when Anakin appears. You know, in Episode 6.
So there's Shrek 4D, which is also titled "The Ghost of Lord Farquaad."
That's it.
Shrek
That's
4D, the movie
one.
that shouldn't have been made.
They had that at King's Island.
Yeah, you're right.
That's where I saw it.
Oh man.
I love that. Oh my god. But yeah, so and then at the end of the day though, in the most irreverent way possible, we get to happily ever after until Shrek 2 and then
Happily.
until Shrek 3
What's
and then
Shrek 2's
Shrek
subtitle?
I think it's just
Happily
Shrek
ever
2.
after.
But then we also get to the last one, most recent one, Shrek Forever After.
Oh, there we go. There's the forever after.
Yeah. But yeah, and
We
so
made it.
this entire movie is just this like irreverent deconstruction of everything Disney and fairy tale and everything that we've known up until this point. And the thing is that is like everyone looks back on this movie and thinks it's like looks at how incredible it is. And the love for this movie, especially on the internet, is just insane.
The memes.
To the point where probably one of the most famous like secondary fan made Shrek things ever to be made, Shrek Retold, a nearly one for one recreation of the entire Shrek movie made by individual contributors in their own styles, all uploaded to YouTube for anyone to watch.
Oh, I gotta go see this now.
It only has some very small and slight deviations, but like it mixes up like 2D animation, 3D animation, stop motion animation, live action, it's like this combination of like there's parts of this movie that's just like, wow, that was so incredibly done. Like, wow, good job, random person. To the point where it's just kind of like it physically makes you cringe at how bad it is. And it goes from one to the next at like an instant.
It's too much.
It's incredible. If you ever have an hour and 30 minutes to spare,
Which one
go
do I
watch
do?
the entirety of Shrek Retold.
I'm gonna watch that.
It should have been nominated for an Oscar. But yeah, and the thing is, like, everyone looks back on Shrek super lovingly, and it's this like to the point where Shrek is in the U.S. Library of Congress as a historical monument of filmmaking.
That's great.
So like Shrek has been viewed by the U.S. government as something necessary to the telling of U.S. history.
Yeah, speak to whoever's in charge of that. What are your criteria? I'm not disagreeing with them. I'm just curious.
Yeah. But the thing is that like as much as people love Shrek, there's lots of we're gonna wrap up with a few faults of Shrek. Because Shrek did some incredible stuff, but it's also kind of made famous and popular some really bad stuff that has kind of become the mainstays of the problems of modern animation movies.
Shrek is faultless, and how dare you?
I think Shrek for what it is faultless, but its legacy is where problems start to come.
Go ahead.
Because Shrek was kind of the first 3D animated movie that starred a bunch of famous voice actors. So it relied very heavily on star power that used crude humor and lots of over-the-top pop culture references to become famous. And that's where you have lots of just really horrible movies, like 3D animated movies. There's one in particular that I'm thinking of, or it was like a Pixie one. Or no, like Trolls. Trolls is a good example.
Michael, people love Trolls.
I'm sure they do, and people also love like Despicable Me. They also love.
Are you telling me that Shrek's the reason that the Minions exist?
Is part of the reason it made it popular to make movies.
Shrek opened a Pandora's box of movies.
It really did.
Some
For
were
the
good,
amount of love and
some were
success
bad.
that Shrek has had, it's like you said, it's opened the Pandora's box to a lot of horrible parts of the animation industry.
Well, it's all
to the point where
now.
it's like even Disney for a while there was like really got its hooks into this sort of format as well, especially at the end of the Disney Renaissance, which you can go back to our previous episode and listen to more of.
Link in the bio or something. I don't know. Go
It
find
probably
it.
won't be. You can just find it.
Yeah, just look it up. It's out there.
But yeah, so,
So is this episode ogre? Not
it's
yet.
almost ogre.
Okay. You let me know when it's ogre.
Yeah, in
He's gonna say the
closing,
thing. See?
for the Shrek is just this incredible little internet love baby that has just become, I don't know why I said
What the fuck, man?
Just left it a
it's become a beloved part of like internet culture and all of our childhoods, and I'm just so happy, despite the tainted legacy it's left behind. I'm so happy that Shrek is a thing and that we can continue to watch it to this day.
Shrek is love. Shrek is life.
Mm-hmm.
Can you say the thing again?
Shrek is love?
No, the one thing where you said it's
now it's all ogre.
Okay.
So inner Shrek this.
That works.
In lieu of a quick this week, because last week was hosted by Chloe, I'd like to do a little bit of housekeeping, if I may.
Sure.
Because I feel like there's a bunch of stuff that maybe we could be mentioning more in our episodes of the podcast. So I'm going to do that real quick. First off, huge shout out to Chloe, who has been casted in a Cincinnati Fringe show.
Yes.
She's doing the stuff she loves, and we're so happy for her. And for that reason, she might not be around for a couple weeks. So you'll get a lot more off the wall, less fact checked stuff. So if you hear clickety clacking of us Googling stuff, don't say a goddamn word, because Chloe's living her dream.
We're facting ourselves.
Exactly. Another thing that I want to talk about in lieu of a quick this is entertain this and what it is now. Because what had started as a singular podcast has become a family of podcasts under an umbrella of entertain this.
Yeah.
Because we realized that our name was so vague that it could also encapsulate other shows. So, that we've been going through a rebranding of calling this the Entertain This podcast, as opposed to strictly Entertain This, because Entertain This is now encompassing many a thing. So that being said, we have a couple of different shows to which Entertain This represents. All three are equally entertaining and awesome. And I think we can take some time to do a little bit of a deeper dive into each one of those while we have this time here today. So to start, I think each of us could describe one of the shows. I'm going to start by describing the one you've just listened to, Entertain This. It's our bread and butter. It's our classic Coke. It is our 11 herbs and spices. It's the
flagship.
It's the flagship podcast, Entertain This. Podcast encapsulating all things entertainment. That's what we do here. We talk about anything that entertains us, with the promise that we will discuss it with you as though you are just one of our friends that we're trying to convince to entertain something, to watch something, to engage in something, and to convince you and our fellow co-hosts that it's worth your time. So if you enjoyed this episode of Entertain This, that's what you can expect from the other 110 episodes of Entertain This. And now I'm going to throw it over to Michael to talk about Project Icosa.
Yeah, so Project Icosa has been something that we've talked about for a very long time, but just started releasing new episodes about, and that is a D&D actual play podcast where Alex is our wonderful, fantastical DM who is leading us through an adventure through the world of Askerealm, where me and Nick, as well as Chloe and a good friend Dan, who we are playing through as our different characters and exploring this world and just trying to create this incredible story for us that you all get to listen to and come along with on our journey. And with that, I'm going to throw the last one to Nick.
Oh, do I have a pod? Oh, yeah. Big Chicken Bits. Yeah, that's my podcast. Me and a good friend of mine, John Kincaid, who's a friend of the show. We started a, I guess, variety show podcast, you'd call it. We just talk about all sorts of things for about an hour, 30 minutes to 45 minutes. And it's a good show. It's a good show about chicken and all the different bits you can make out of it.
It's mostly not about that from what I've listened to.
No, We try to avoid the big chicken.
So the thing that I want to stress is that we are not a network of podcasts. We are a family of podcasts. We're each our own thing, each individually produced, and basically the idea is if you listen to one, all three of these podcasts, I can guarantee if you enjoy one, you're going to enjoy the other two.
Yeah.
So if you have time, if you're all caught up on all 111 episodes of Entertain This, there's more content out there involving us three goofballs to different extents, and you should go and check those out as well. Entertain This, of course, releases every Friday. Project Icosa releases every other Wednesday. I think it's the second and fourth Wednesday of each month. A new episode actually dropped the day that we're recording this, episode 2, called Better Off Strangers. And Big Chicken Bits releases, I believe, every Monday. Is that correct?
Monday 8 a.m., unless we forget.
Monday 8 a.m., unless they forget, which they are privy to do. We encourage you guys to explore our website, www.entertainthis.net. There you can see what our family of podcasts is all about. You can click on shows and you can explore all three of those options. We're open to growth in the future, be it that we have more ideas for podcasts. So we may end up with 4 shows, maybe 5 shows. If you're listening to this in the future, who knows how many shows exist under the Entertain This brand. But always remember, we are a family of podcasts and not a podcast network. So do not get that mixed up.
You can't join.
Thanks for the clarification.
We're an exclusive club.
Yeah, you cannot. That is the most important part, is that it's not something people can apply for nor join. It's just podcasts that we also make.
Yeah.
It's just other
with
shows
our friends.
that we also make with our friends. And if at some point, Michael, you were to decide you wanted to make your own show with somebody else, it would also be welcome into the family of podcasts. But we're not openly looking for podcasts to join. That's what we're getting at. Anyway, thank you for watching Entertain This and for listening to those bits of housekeeping. And I hope if you explore one of those other shows, they all have their various social medias. Go on to one of them and be like, Entertain This sent me. Or write a review and say, Entertain This sent me. Just let them know you heard about us. You heard about the show on Entertain This first. That'll be fun. Without further ado, though, thank you so much for watching. If there's anything that you want to hear us talk about here on Entertain This, anything in the realm of entertainment that you want to see us forever solidify into the halls of greatness of entertainment, there are a couple different ways that you can send us your suggestions. The easiest way is, of course, to go to our website, www.entertainthis.net/ET-podcast. Scroll all the way to the bottom. There's a little questionnaire that you can fill out that gets sent straight to us. Or you can just email us, entertainthispodcast@gmail.com. You can also find us on Twitter. We are entertain_this. On Instagram, we are Entertain This Podcast. On Facebook, we are Podcast Entertain This. Until next time, entertain us so we can entertain you, and you can entertain this. We'll see you guys next Friday. Bye!
This episode of Entertain This was written by Michael Savoya, with additional commentary from Nick Mustakangas and Alex Steele. Our showrunner and resident fact-checker is Chloe Price. Our theme music is Rush Bubble by Aaron Spencer, with interstitial music by DJW. Tune in every Friday for new episodes, and thanks for listening.